Okay, Kirk's in. Hello? Hello?
Our board members waiting out there. Like Bob and then the young girl and the Schmutz sitting out. Greg, need to let Greg and everybody in. Who has it?
Karen's controlling that. I can look at it.
Where's Leah? Did somebody must have promoted her?
It's not here yet. And Bob. that's
No,
the
she
date.
was over here. I thought I saw her. There she is.
Hi, this is Suyan. I'm the Spanish translator.
Yes, yes, we'll be right with you. Nice to see you.
Type in Lydia, type in Bob Griffin. He needs to be promoted.
It might be Robert Griffin. There's Leah. She's been promoted.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you for promoting me. I think I'm accepting a calendar request that's not the right one.
No, you're on, Leah. We can hear you fine. So you're good.
No, but the one before, when I first came on, wasn't.
Okay, that might have been closed session.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, now you're good. All right, so who are we missing? Missing Mr. Griffin,
He's here, Linda.
Linda Lees-Dwyer. Yeah, there's Linda. So, Ms. Chalkley, have you promoted everybody that we need?
I have promoted our speakers under H.
Okay. Okay, I think then we're good because we have all our board members here.
Okay.
Shall we, you've got us recording. Do we want to go to YouTube or you've already done that?
It's live. It says it's live on YouTube now.
Okay,
It's live on YouTube.
okay.
Okay, so I want to call the meeting to order, and I'll do roll call. Trustee Lees-Dwyer,
Present.
Trustee Andrade Zuniga. Unmute your mic, please.
Yeah, present.
Trustee Land,
Present.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
Okay, I'm here. We have a quorum. I'll give you a report out now. Got to read it best I can. In closed session, the board, upon motion of Trustee Hanley and seconded by Trustee Land, moved to approve a special education settlement with a vote of 5-0. Second action, in closed session, Trustees Lees-Dwyer made a motion to deny employee 1425 request for a leave of absence under section 12.3.2 of the collective bargaining agreement with the certificated bargaining unit. Trustee Hanley seconded the motion. The vote was unanimous to pass the motion. And that was all the actions taken in closed session. I will ask the superintendent to lead us in a pledge of allegiance, please.
Yeah, let me,
Dr. Skelly, would you like to have our interpreter make an announcement and then we can move her over into the interpretation room?
yeah, let's do that first and then let's go to the pledge if you don't mind.
Okay, sorry.
Hola, buenas noches a todos. Soy la intérprete en español. Por favor, presionen el botón de abajo donde dice español para escuchar esta junta en español para todos ustedes. Muchas gracias.
Okay. Now would you read the Pledge of Allegiance, Superintendent?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I understand we have public comments.
Yes, we have Atia Shaw, and then we have Elizabeth Baer. So Atia and Elizabeth, Ms. Shaw and Ms. Baer have both been promoted.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I?
Tia,
Yes.
you have 3 minutes, and I believe there's a light, although I do not see the light there that monitors, that shows you when you're I believe when 2 minutes have passed, you get a warning light for the last minute. So
Okay. Thank you
have
so
at
much.
it.
May I begin?
No, good luck. Go on.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much to Superintendent Skelly for inviting me to speak tonight. My name is Atia Shaw, and I'm a senior at San Mateo High School and the chair of the San Mateo County Youth Commission's Environmental Justice Subcommittee. The San Mateo County Youth Commission works alongside county supervisors to try to bridge the gap between adults and youth in the county, and we also work to address projects and policies pertaining to the youth. And specifically, the Environmental Justice Subcommittee aims our focus to the environment. So I've come to talk with you all tonight about a request to have the San Mateo Union High School District's declaration of a climate emergency agendized for the board meeting on April 1st. I will try to put the declaration in chat if I can, or give you guys the permission to see the document. Well, while cities and counties are making the commitment to fight climate change, the Youth Commission and the district students believe that it is important that educational institutions also prioritize sustainability and empower students to take actions in their own communities. So last year, the Environmental Justice Committee created and passed the Declaration of a Climate Emergency, which encourages the board and trustees of 23 school district boards in San Mateo County to pass a declaration that would outline actions that each district would take in combating climate change. So some of these action items include addressing buildings and grounds, operations and transportations, food service, greenhouse gases, climate literacy and advocacy, overall waste management, and campus biodiversity. We think it is of utmost importance that the San Mateo Union High School District take action immediately and send a message to the rest of the county. And this also coincides with the great and amazing work that the district is already doing for sustainability. So with that, if you are interested in this project and would like to hear more about the logistics of the declaration and what exactly it means, then we would humbly request that the discussion of a resolution be agendized for the April 1st board meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, Elizabeth Baer.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to just raise some concerns regarding the ethnic study class that was made mandatory this year. I currently do not have a child in that class. I will in the fall. So I've been talking to some mostly students that have been in the class, and I've actually heard some pretty concerning stories from them. And I actually just got a text from one of them that asked me to share some of her concerns. These students will not speak up in class or anywhere else because of the cancel culture and everything that's kind of going on with having a different opinion, possibly than anyone else. So that's part of my concern is I was looking at goal 1.1, academic achievement, where it's trying to create an inclusive and balanced instruction as possible. Well, that's not happening in this class. These students that have maybe don't agree with the theories that this class is based around, and they are theories, they're not facts, which makes it very difficult to teach and grade based on that they're theories. There's a lot of concern with students that don't agree with some of the theories will not speak up in class. And this one particular student that just texted me said that the one time she did say something, the teacher told her she was spreading disinformation and she needed to speak with her after class. Well, this student was in tears and terrified. You know, these are children. They're not, just regular kids. So for the teacher to call you out like that in front of everyone is pretty humiliating. And you can believe she's never going to open her mouth again in class. And again, these are students that just have differing opinions than the teacher. So I have some concerns I understand everyone probably pushed this class through with good intentions. I don't think anyone had any bad intentions. I know the bill requiring the class is not required. The class is not required for 4 years. So I'm wondering why this class was pushed through when it really isn't ready. The teachers aren't ready to teach. The curriculum's not ready. And I don't know, I'm sure the teachers have good intentions, but quite frankly, I don't think most people don't know how to stay unbiased. I mean, we all have opinions.
Ms. Bear, I'm sorry, your time is up. We actually let you run over.
Okay, well, students are leaving this class in tears. They're writing papers that they don't believe in. So we need to have this addressed on some level. Okay. And I don't know any other place to have this addressed than this platform.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, move on to the next. There are no more public speakers, Ms. Chalkley, right? Okay, moving on to communications to the board. There's a 2021 first interim report and budget overview for parents report received from the County Office of Education. It actually has the superintendent's name there. Do you wish to comment on that? Or
I don't, Mr. Griffin. I just want to also, maybe there are board members who want to make comments. I know we heard from the public, but I don't know if any of your colleagues want to.
Forgive me. I'm sorry. Board comments. I'll have to write that down. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I think Lehia was putting up her hand and so am I.
Okay, now let's get to, okay, are we using blue hands or are we using your own little skinny fingers? I got
We're
blue
using the
hands
blue
and I got
hand.
hands waving. Peter Hanley, top of the list.
You're muted, Peter. Peter, you're muted. Peter, you're on mute.
Peter, you're still mute.
Yeah, I'm still muted.
But he sounds great.
I did both the electronic raise hand and the manual raise hand. I just wanted to take note that it was a year ago that we entered this pandemic and kind of everything exploded and shut down. And it's been a traumatic year in so many ways and difficult. And I wanted to note that that we've all been through a lot over this past year, but I think we've also accomplished a lot in this past year, and I wanted to point that out, and in so noting, I know that there's been a lot of struggle, but I think it's important to recognize that we should be coming back in a different way than we left. And one of the reasons I voted against the calendar last meeting was I don't think we should go back to, I don't think we should go back the same way that we left. You know, we've spent an enormous amount of time learning about distant learning. And there are students that struggle mightily in distant learning, but there are also students that found this a good experience and that benefited from distant learning. And that, you know, using a hybrid model perhaps it could be a good thing going forward. And that we have a chance to change the way school is done. And we have a chance to introduce a lot more flexibility for our students. There are students that are taking college courses. There are students that are taking more advanced courses through using distance learning. And we could perhaps use hybrid approaches to courses that incorporate distance learning and classroom learning. We need to be thinking in a different way and utilizing what we've learned over this past year and the skills that we've developed in communicating knowledge and looking at what we can free up, because we have different needs in our student body, and addressing those needs is going to require putting our resources in different places in different ways. And so, you know, I think we're not going to be serving ourselves well. We're not going to be serving our students well if we just go back to what we think was the old normal. That's not going to be good for us. It's not going to be good for our students. And we need new approaches, and we can benefit from the silver lining of what's been a very traumatic period for all of us. But it hasn't been a complete and total disaster. There are things that we have learned from going through this very difficult period.
Thank you. Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Hanley. A lot of your sentiments are also mine. First, I did want to touch on the fact that it's the anniversary of the COVID-19 shutdowns and everything. And I just want to acknowledge our Mother Earth and how much, you know, she suffered, and along with us human beings, and the lands that we're on, our indigenous lands. I mean, our peoples have definitely suffered also through this pandemic. I want to acknowledge the suffering that's gone on, but also you're right, Trustee Hanley, about the things that we have learned. Today in the call with Nancy McGee, the superintendent of the schools, that's something that she touched on as well, is we can't go forward without thinking about all of the things that we've learned. And some of our students that have to work, that have to help their families, this is going to be very helpful for them, because they're going to be able to go to school and work at the same time, which will not only help their families, but they'll be able to get their educations as well. I also wanted to acknowledge our Asian and Pacific Islander communities that are suffering right now with all of the racism and the violence that's towards them. We need to stop. We need to make sure that we treat each other kindly. We are all suffering. All of the rhetoric that was out, that was a bunch of nonsense, is not beneficial for our communities, especially to teach our children. What are we teaching our children on how to treat each other if we are continuously spreading this type of hate and misinformation? That's wrong. And for our students out there in our communities that are of this community, we stand with you and we see you, and we will protect you, and we will continue to spread information that will be positive, and we will just stand around you and help you as much as we can. I also wanted to give a shout out to all the students that I've met in the past month or so. I've been meeting a lot of our kids in the Bridge program, and kids out at CAP, and the kids in the different just different like grassroots organizing communities. And our board, students. It's been great, and I thank you for all of the attention that you've been paying to your district, and all of the input that you send and that you give. We're here for you. So I just wanted to acknowledge you all. But the Peace Pantry at Hillsdale too, like right on, you guys are doing great work. All of our staff that's been out since the beginning of the pandemic and working, our teachers, our classified staff, everybody that's been working really hard, our board, we haven't ever dealt with something like this. So I'm glad to be part of a group of people that, is moving forward positively for our students. So that's pretty much it. And something that Nancy McGee said today, she said equity starts with ethics. And it's true. We have to think about the way that we move forward ethically. Is the way that we're moving forward ethically? Is what we do in our everyday lives ethic? Is the way that we teach our children ethic? So just keeping things like that in mind. So thank you.
Trustee Land.
Thank you, President Griffin. I'm just going to read. I won't repeat too much, but I will say this. Trustee Hanley, a very good speech. I really agree with a lot of what you said. I think the lessons here are that we don't do business as usual and that we've learned a lot. I didn't even realize it was the anniversary till you guys just said it, because I've been so much in the trenches working that it's hard to even put your head up sometimes to see what's going on. But what we do need to do is reflect on what's working and what's valuable and what we've really learned. And it's been challenging. We've learned quite a bit over the year about what works for some kids and what doesn't. I think the hardest part for me is our most vulnerable students who have not connected at this time. All we know is that that achievement gap is widening. The learning loss isn't about retro and losing what you've learned, but it's not learning the new material that's being covered because they need it in a different way. And it's not working for a lot of our students. And we need to remember that. So again, we've learned a lot of lessons here. And I think the most important one is about how to really reach the students that we're not reaching. And it's getting harder and harder to do that. And I think we really need to emphasize that. I also want to agree with Lihia. Thank you for mentioning about the protests about, helping our Asian Pacific community, the API community, and really acknowledging that hate is not the right way. And that hate is what we should be fighting against. Education should be helping with that. I just wanted to put a couple shout outs for a couple of announcements as part of my own speech here. There is still a call for the Kent Awards, the J. Russell Kent Awards applications. I hope our school district is going to highlight some of the really positive things that have happened because we do have quite a bit. And I really appreciate Dr. Skelly having students come and present and show what we've been doing and teachers as well. So March 15th, if they still want to get the applications in, it is definitely possible to highlight some of the wonderful things that we do. And if other board members from other districts are on, I did see a few. If you're interested, it's March 15th is the deadline. Second one, just to you board members, Legislative Action Day is going to be March 27th from 10 to 11:30. If you haven't registered yet or you need to, let me know. I'm still part of the San Mateo School Boards Association board. So if you're interested, please let me know. And that's it for me.
Okay, trustees Lees, Dwyer, you want to weigh in?
Well, I think I should at this point. I agree with Mr. Hanley. I agree with Ms. Zuniga. I agree with Greg, and I'll probably agree with you when you say something. And I think that we have learned so much. It's been the world's changed, and we're focusing on things now, like Legia shared, on ethics and how we interact, how we serve our communities, how our communities interact, how our students interact. There's so much that we can gain from this. And I think we really need to focus on what we can gain, what we have learned, where we can go with the new knowledge that we have. I have never seen more engagement than when putting together with Ms. Kempke, putting together all of these people to try to work together to come up with plans and how things can be done. So I really hope that we continue the engagement, that we encourage people, students, to speak out, to tell us what they think, so that we can get new ideas and see what we can do. The other thing is we have Mr. Hawkins joining us now, which I'm very glad about. And we need to be especially good stewards of our money, our funding, because in the state finances, you know, I guess everyone's printing up money, but there's going to come a time when they may take a look at basic aid, and we want to be prepared. We have a very solid reserve, but every dollar counts, every student counts, every penny we spend on them counts. And I think we need to really keep focused on doing the best we can with what we have, and watching our reserves be prepared in case we do get into a situation where we're going to have to fund additional services, and we have some great ideas come forward that we want to fund. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for their comments. I agree with everybody. I don't think we're going back, and there's a number of reasons why we're not going back to pre-COVID days. And certainly I think what we've seen, COVID shined this light on the numerous social injustices that we live with on a daily basis. And there are a whole bunch of us that probably will think that, you know, and I was talking to a guy yesterday, all he could talk about it was his new car. And I was just like, come on, you know, there are so many things wrong with how we do things, what we do as a society, not necessarily just education. I mean, there's healthcare, there continues to be housing problems, there's homelessness, there's all kind of things out there. And we just need to find a way to improve the system, start doing away with so much of the social injustice that you know, I think we collectively were oblivious to. So the one thing, we've got to use what we've learned from this COVID-19 pandemic to make our system and our lives collectively better. That's it. We need to move on so we can get going. So we're going to move to the consent agenda, or I'll acknowledge the communications, which I acknowledged previously, I1, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody wish anything pulled? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Land.
I second.
Okay, and Trustee Andrade Zuniga seconds. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Trustees Land, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Trustees Lee Dwyer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Hanley?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, and the consent agenda passes 5-0. We will move on to, I'm sure it's the report of the superintendent, although I haven't got there in my own.
That's right. I'll help you out there.
I'm winging it.
Yeah, you're doing well. Okay, so let's see. I've got some good news for us here. First of all, I too welcome Yancey Hawkins to his first meeting here. So we're excited to have him join us. We right before this board meeting, there was a meeting of the California State Public Relations Association, which is all the communications officers for school districts. And our district was one of the winners of this award. We submitted our Savvy Source. I think if board members know that we have an internal publication that we put out every month where we highlight activities, students, mostly staff members. We give golden apples to classified and certificated staff. And out of all the districts in the state, our publication was recognized as the winner of this award. And I think a lot of credit for that goes to Ms. Chalkley and Ms. Sarah Happich, who put that out. It's really a wonderful document. It's been invaluable during this COVID time as we continue to build community in a challenging environment, virtual environment. And then you have this report. So it's really well-deserved. And I'm really proud of our district. I've never been in a place that had such a good publication. Can we
give Ms. Chalkley a hand, please? Can we?
Yeah. So that
Okay,
was,
thank you.
that was really nice. And I know that's been done out of the before, for many people have helped build that into the document that it is. Health conditions are changing rapidly here over the past few days. The county shows, less than 20 cases of COVID for the last 4 days. That's a tremendous achievement. We should be very pleased with that, but we need to stay vigilant. This virus is far from conquered. The battle rages on. I'm optimistic, but we're certainly vigilant as we go forward, and we need to do well there. I agree with the comments that have been made about coming back better. We're dedicated to doing that work. We've begun negotiations about next year with our bargaining units, and there's lots of good ideas out there and things that we have learned. We also I want to recognize the work around sustainability that we've been doing. That was mentioned in the public comments here that we've had, that we're doing, where I think we're a leader in that area. The student voice on that committee is something that we should all be proud of. With your permission, we'd like to put that on the agenda for approval at the next meeting. I think it'll affirm the work that the Sustainability Committee is doing, and we continue to look for ways that we can be better stewards of our world and be exemplars for our community. To Mrs. Baer, who made comments earlier, we've had a spirited discussion online about both ethnic studies and other comments. We'll continue to engage with her and other parents who have concerns about whatever the curriculum is. And we want to we certainly want to have safe environments here for every student to express their views, even if they're courageous, especially if they're courageous enough to challenge our ideas. That's how we get better, and that's how our culture is supported. So tonight we have a budget report on the agenda, social studies, an examination of social studies committee, and then also a return to school report. It's 3 weeks until students report back, the group 3 students. This on Wednesday, yesterday, the first group of students came back in 362 days for in-person learning. And even though everybody was masked up, you could see those smiles right through those masks. It was a great day. And I can't tell you how excited I am to have students back on campus here very, very soon. So that's the end of my report.
Okay, I have all the legal rigmarole, which is another technical term I need to address that I did not address up front. So this is an open meeting. This is a public meeting in the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees. If you wish to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comment time, please send an email to comments at SMUHSD.org with your name, email address, and your Zoom name, if different, and the item under which you would like to comment. The board president will call on you. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topics and number of persons wishing to be heard. I thought I better read that now in the event that somebody does wish to speak on an item that actually is on the agenda. And if somebody would have had public comment, they're welcome to put a card in, and we'll see if we can find time for them. So anyway, that should be, and I have to apologize. I have to read it off my cell phone, which nobody can see, while I'm looking at my iPad while I'm watching my PC. So if you wonder how come I don't see stuff, that's how come. So anyway, report of the student board member. Good evening.
So yes, good evening. So our students have been just focusing on kind of planning for their graduations, especially for their seniors. We want to provide a kind of supportive, collaborative community as our students begin to prepare for the end of the year, especially with the new College Board updates about AP tests and the SAT. So a lot of our students are just focusing on that, as well as kind of preparing for senior graduation. A lot of our schools have been working with both ASBs and their leadership teams and just their student bodies to kind of create a safe but also kind of enjoyable and celebrative senior graduation, which has been really nice. And our leadership teams have also been recognizing a lot of, again, the disparities and the kind of like hate that our communities have been experiencing, especially geared at Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. So our students have been working really hard on that, just to kind of create a more, a better community in our schools and just a much more connection within our students in order to just, you know, have a more spread of empathy and connection.
Thank you. Report of the District Teachers Association.
Thank you. Good evening, President Griffin, members of the board, district cabinet. I'd like to again welcome publicly Mr. Hawkins to the district in addition to his first time at being introduced. We really look forward to working with you, partially because for those of you who are not in attendance, he may be the first district employee since the shift to virtual meetings that I've ever heard say, "I'm excited to be in this Zoom call." It was during a negotiations meeting on Monday. I'm just hoping that they're all that exciting and we can continue the close working relationship with the business department of the district. So welcome aboard. Tonight, as at the last meeting, there's a lot to be positive about. Our local public health metrics continue to show that we are making progress on curtailing the spread of this virus. The sacrifices that we've all made in our personal and public lives have contributed to the fact that San Mateo County may soon be assigned the orange tier. Make no mistake, we are not out of the woods yet, not even close. California still leads the nation in almost every metric, including total cases and total deaths at 2 million and 10,000 respectively, ahead of our closest competitors. Vaccines have also had an impact. It's commendable that we have been able to get first doses into the arms of over 1,000 district employees. And I really salute Dr. Skelly, Superintendent McGee, and the County Public Health Department for making that happen. Most of the rest of our community, however, is still unprotected. It's also clear that distance learning has had an impact based on news from schools that have opened around the country that I'll share later. I've previously mentioned that the country, I guess, is in a race between the vaccines and the variants. This has become far more evident since we last met. The B.1.1.7 variant is now a major threat. When we last met, it accounted for 2 to 3% of new cases in the country. It now represents approximately 50% of that balance. Most public health experts describe our current situation as being in the eye of the hurricane. The B.1.1.7 variant ran wild in schools in England. The only solution was a complete societal shutdown. The US is now seeing major clusters of outbreaks in B.1.1.7 in schools that have recently opened in Minnesota, Michigan, and Colorado, with significant transmission between adults and children. In some of those places, it's the leading cause of the increase in cases in those communities. The experts suggest that while vaccine distribution will increase in the coming months, it may not be enough to stem the spread of the B.1.1.7 if states begin to open too quickly. It's not a matter of if, it's when it will happen. It's no wonder why most are so puzzled about the rush to reopen indoor dining and bars in states that are relaxing masking requirements. As we consider the return to campus, we must remain vigilant. Of course, I've been saying that for nearly a year, which brings me to the topic of reopening. Again, a lot to be positive about here. The district has begun to deliver required parameters and protocols as specified in the guidance from the CDC and the CDPH. PPE has been arriving at the sites, although plexiglass shields for teacher stations are still lacking. Signage and markings are being installed. Classrooms have begun to take shape. With only 20 days to go before students arrive for phase 3, however, there's still a lot of ground to cover. We still have no schedule for regular testing of students and staff. We know the frequency, but not the schedule. We're unsure about the availability of staffing to ensure required physical distancing. Most of the necessary technology will not be delivered until April 1st, the first day of instruction. Finally, and most importantly, we still have 19 classrooms, all at BHS, and 3 entire buildings that do not yet meet the minimum CDC ASHRAE standard for avoidance of COVID transmission of indoor spaces. These deficiencies cannot be corrected, then the district will be unable to deliver on its promise to the community. I ask again why the district has waited until now to address the inevitable. Why did the district wait until January to actually test and evaluate the HVAC systems? To be clear, the teacher's position has not changed for nearly a year. Follow the guidance, meet the minimum safety standards, and provide the necessary support for instructional success. Considering the impending surge due to the variants, the need for vigilance in ensuring student safety is paramount. We have 20 days. I suggest that we commission an emergency joint committee, including trustees, to assess the readiness of the sites to accept students based on the state and federal safety standards and the practical aspects of testing cadence and physical distancing. I believe such an assessment will provide not only transparency, but also develop ownership of the plans. Finally, I would like to address the district's position that all staff are mandated to work from campus regardless of whether or not in-person instruction takes place. I'm speaking specifically about Wednesdays and not just asynchronous Wednesdays. There will be no students on campus for in-person instruction on Wednesdays. Why would we unnecessarily increase the risk of infection of employees and students, not just at school, but also during commutes, entry and exit, etc., if there are no in-person students available to teach? Why increase the likelihood that an employee gets sick or infects others, possibly causing a lockdown for no measurable value add to the educational process? With all of the other more important tasks at hand in the next 20 days, I suggest you consider an easy move to make campuses more safe with absolutely no impact on the instructional program. Again, we look forward to solving these problems together in a productive way. Thank you.
Thank you. Report of the CSEA Chapter 519 representative. Good evening.
Good evening, President Griffin, members of the board, Dr. Skelly. Our message, the campuses have been buzzing this week with pods, special groups, and athletics. Staff and students are being tested, filling out live-safe forms, and from what I've heard, students and staff are enjoying seeing their classmates and coaches in person, even with masks and social distancing. Additional temporary campus security specialists are here to help monitor the campuses, which is another plus. Maintenance and operations has been busy stocking the classrooms, office spaces with hand sanitizing stations, which includes gloves, hand sanitizer gel, wipes, and tissues, face shield, and sneeze guards. Students will have their own sanitizing wipe tubs. Questions still do linger for our instructional aides, as some certificated staff may need to continue working remotely. Instructional aides or other staff may be reassigned to monitor students in the classroom. What is the procedure in place for our instructional aides who don't have a teacher in the room? Who on campus is responsible for what's going on in the classroom? Will an instructional aide have a two-way radio to communicate with that certificated individual? These are some of the questions that get raised. This concern comes in light of the real possibility of shortage of in-person substitute teachers. We hope that if classified are put in those positions, each site establishes a point of contact and clear guidelines for who's responsible for what takes place in that classroom. Phase 3 is off to a great start, and we are so proud of all of our staff who worked hard with the reopening and welcoming our students back to campus. Keep sending those positive vibes that the next phases go just as smoothly. CSEA would also like to welcome Mr. Hawkins to our district and our team here. Thank you all, and you have a great evening.
Thank you. Report of the district teacher, San Mateo Adult School Teachers Association rep.
Good evening. I'm Shari Dagey, and I'm wishing a good evening to President Griffin, Dr. Skelly, and esteemed trustees. The integration of technology into all aspects of our adult school programs has been never more important than during the last year. We have relied in part on the excellent training provided by OTAN, the National Technical Assistance Network. This organization promotes the integration of technology into all programs within adult schools in California. As a result, highly trained teachers are able to empower our adult learners to meet their academic, employment, and civic goals. OTAN's advisory committee to this point has consisted only of school administrators. Realizing the crucial importance of having teacher voices represented, OTAN reached out to the San Mateo Adult School and to teacher Cynthia Eagleton with an invitation to join the OTAN Advisory Council as the first teacher representative. You all know Cynthia. She was our union representative at the board meeting 2 weeks ago. Our own tech committee, led by a union member, Deep Bular, is working on ensuring that our staff has the skills needed to serve our students as we continue remote learning and then transition forward into the classroom. And since it's Women's Month, we would like to give a shout out to all the women leaders in our district. San Mateo Adult School has the privilege of being led entirely by women administrators. Our Excel consortium is led by a woman. Our union is led by 4 women. All of the committees at the adult school, the tech committee, equity, marketing committees, and so forth, are all helmed by women. And our student council advisors are also women. Leadership is a ground-up experience, and we're grateful that the district provides so many opportunities for women to lead as students, teachers, and administrators. These experiences provide the foundation on which leadership by women at higher levels in our society is built. So congratulations to all the women leaders in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. Special reports and appearances, update on spring semester reopening. Dr. Black.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight's presentation will review the first couple of days of phase 1 and our preparations for phases 2 and 3. There will be a number of presenters in which we will introduce as we go along. And some of this information will be repetitive for the board, but we chose to include it for the public benefit. Slide 2. Last week, the County Health Department approved all of our school reopening plans. The plans are the culmination of in-depth research and planning to create a school environment that is as reasonably safe as possible and meets all school safety standards. We thank our employee associations for their collaboration on these plans and the many details contained within. Next slide. This slide is a summary of our 3 phases and student start dates. And for a phase 1 summary, I'd like to introduce our Director of Special Education, Holly Wade, for the next slide.
Good evening, board members and community. We were thrilled to welcome back our students this week with lots of sounds of excitement. And as Dr. Skelly indicated, lots of smiles even behind the masks. On March 3rd, our teachers and staff returned to campus and began preparing for their classrooms to be ready for student return. We had students return to campus yesterday, the 10th, starting Wednesday. We had students today, and we'll have another group of students tomorrow. 19 classrooms overall will welcome back students and accommodate in-person instruction across 5 campuses, in addition to live streaming or Zooming in the room for virtual classroom instruction as well. Staff developed schedules at each one of the campuses and each one of the programs to support the unique needs of their students. And on March 8th, we had a health and safety training for all of our phase 1 staff. We gave 2 sessions. We had about 160 staff, and we were able to, with Sarah Devaney's support, we were able to answer lots of questions and provide an overall viewpoint of how we can make sure to ensure safety across our campuses. Our transportation department worked tirelessly to coordinate and to make sure that 70 of our students were transported safely in buses that were socially distanced and sterilized, and lots of ventilation. And like I said yesterday, when I was on campus and the students started bounding off the buses, it was a wonderful, wonderful moment. Next slide, please. As far as our outreach, families were contacted by directly to coordinate transportation, answer any questions. We anticipate that over the next 3 days, we will welcome back 114 students to our campuses. And each family was contacted by our health technicians at our school sites to coordinate testing, to answer any questions, to review our Live Safe app, and to make sure that all of the safety concerns or questions that parents had were answered. Students and staff alike were super excited to return to campus, and the coordination of our staff, our classified staff, our certificated staff, site administrators, our transportation team, and certainly our MOF team have made this possible. It has been an extraordinary effort, and I want to thank all of the team members for working together. We appreciate everyone, and we're so happy to see students back on campus learning and being together. So thank you, everyone, and appreciate your support.
Next slide. Middle College has begun preparations for a phase 2 start. The program will be located on the adult school campus with approximately 35% of the students electing for in-person instruction. Tomorrow, plexiglass will be placed on teacher workstations and instructional technology will be installed, PPP inventory and placed in the classrooms. Middle College will have a testing schedule for COVID testing for both students and staff. And in-person advisories will begin on March 24th and 25th, which will be the first day back for most Middle College students, with the regular program starting on April 5th. Next slide. Peninsula High School students will return to school at their beautiful new campus for phase 2 on March 24th. Approximately 30 to 35% of the students will be in person. Teacher participation is voluntary until phase 3. Moving into a new building necessitates additional training for staff for the new technology that will occur. And in addition, like all of our schools, the staff and students will be COVID tested on a regular schedule. Next slide. For our Bridge program, our newcomer program, 65% of our enrolled students will be returning to in-person instruction, and they will attend 4 days a week, which is possible given the program's smaller size. There will be a walkthrough with staff next week for preparation, and they're very excited to welcome all the students back. And we would also like to acknowledge and thank the adult school leadership team and staff for hosting both the Bridge program and Middle College on their campus. Next slide. Phase 2 initiates an expanded enrichment program for students, and this slide provides just a sampling of what is slated on campus for our students. There is much excitement around all of these programs, and we hope to re-engage many students with the activities that they love to do. Next slide. The district has hosted informational town halls last week and this week, with this week's town hall being delivered in Spanish. The initial schedule for phase 3, assuming the county is in the orange tier, has a return of staff on March 24th with 3 asynchronous instruction days right away. This will allow for training and preparations of our staff, and the preparations that week and the following week will include the general ed student orientation and training. General ed students choosing in-person instruction will return back to campuses on April 1st. Spring break is the week of April 5th, and then April 12th restarts phase 3. Next, Laura Chalkley, our manager of public relations and communications, will review our family survey results with the next slide.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So we got a really great response rate. It's actually 87%. And we got 7,000, I guess this number needs to be updated, 7,548 and an 87% response rate. For in-person, about a third of our students, actually exactly a third, wish to be in person. 65% are seeking distance learning with a sliver of 2% in independent study. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go over each of these percentages, but we did want to share with you that we did break out our responses by school. So by school, percent responding, distance learning, in-person and independent study. We had really great response rates across the board from all of our schools. Next slide, right, please. And we also broke out response by grade level for returning to campus, distance learning, and independent study. So I'm not going to go over all of these numbers, but these are there for you to look at your leisure. Okay, next slide, please. So what did we do for our outreach for our survey? So in addition to our traditional methods of emailing, texting, and auto dialers to families, we did hold a district-wide town hall on March 2nd. And it was a virtual standing room only. We had 300 participants and then had overflow into YouTube. We did provide simultaneous translation into Spanish and Chinese. And then Dr. Showman hosted a town hall for Spanish-speaking families on March 8th, and she also had a very robust crowd at that event. We made calls to individual families by both school site administrators and our family engagement coordinators. We did a robust web and social media push to share the survey out with our community. And we collaborated with our PTOs, and they really helped us share the survey link and a lot of associated communications through their various tools. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think I'm handing it back to Sarah Devaney, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. So we had lots of new information released this week. Our COVID-19 recommendations checklist, which is what we follow through the county health. Lots of great information there. It's linked here, so you can also take a look at that. A few of the highlights are the quarantine updates. So there is some guidance related to updated quarantine based on exposures, not necessarily based on travel, which I know is a question for a lot of folks that we'll touch on a little bit later. So some of the information related to quarantine is that if there is a hardship on the community or the district, you can, as a system, determine with the guidance, obviously, of the health department to reduce the quarantine time. And there are several options in there from 14 to 10. And so that's something that we're definitely looking at, seeing how we would support quarantine. And then just to highlight all of this, these are case by case basis. So if there is a positive case, that requires the full 14 days and is not recommended to reduce to the 10 days. We would follow that based on what the county health would guide on that case. And then testing criteria was also updated. So that's something we're also looking at. And then there is tier categories and guidance based on which tier you're in. So moving into orange, there is new strategy related to the orange tier category, knowing that we will hopefully be moving into orange next week. So we're following that. We're making sure our cadence are properly meeting those requirements as well. But there are some updates there. So we're going to make sure that we bring those into our system and follow that as well. And then there's some health screening, lots of recommendations early on about temperature taking. The guidance now around temperature taking is that is optional. And so we're looking at that as well and how we support the health screening process. We want to do what is safe, but is also what is recommended. So as this new guidance comes out, we're looking at it, looking at what makes sense, looking how we can bring it to our sites. And then another thing to point out is before we were calling it face coverings, and now it's well-fitted masks, and that's something to highlight. And so now we're changing all of our training from our phase 1 to our phase 2 to make sure we are adapting when these updates come out and we are sharing that information. And then some great updates related to sports and extracurricular, both in the checklist as well as youth sports guidance. And then CIF also released some information. So we're making sure that we're in alignment, we're making sure that our testing is in alignment, and then also if we can allow more than what we're doing right now, that we're safely doing that based on the guidance. And then some really exciting information for fully vaccinated individuals and how that affects us in the education system. And so we're looking at that, we're making sure we understand that, and then making sure we're still supporting our staff getting their vaccines. And then once they are fully vaccinated, which is 14 days after their second dose, there are some things that we're going to be able to support them related to exposures and quarantine time that we think will really help us as a system. And then just to highlight, we do have our tentative scheduled COVID testing for phase 2 and phase 3. Staff testing will begin next week, and then student testing as well for our phase 2 return. And then for our phase 3, our student testing will begin during our asynchronous time, 3/24 through 3/26. And then again, our staff testing for phase 3 will be scheduled within the 2-week rotation, which our next rotation is 3/22 and 3/23. We did our staff testing this week as well. So the next time it'll be 2 weeks, and that'll be the 22nd and 23rd. And then we have a scheduled date for some athlete testing on the 29th. Although I just updated our AEDs, who I know are going to be sharing a little bit later, that we are going to add additional testing for them next week. And then when we get into April, we know that this scheduled in advance 2-week rotation for our staff and the 3-week for our students will really transition into a weekly opportunity on campus. And then we will strategically test our students based on that. So on campus, if you're a cohort A or cohort B, there will be 1 day at each site that we will be testing. Next slide, please. We heard a little bit about the vaccine update, but really great things happening. Over 1,000 of our employees have received at least their first dose, and all employees will have been invited by the end of this week. We know there were a few discrepancies with folks maybe missing appointments or not seeing their emails, so we're working with those folks individually to make sure they do get their vaccines, but lots of additional opportunities that are popping up all over the county. So I want to make sure that people know where they can sign up to be notified of those opportunities at San Mateo County's Health, as well as My Turn. And then all of our healthcare providers that we have here for employees, Kaiser, Sutter Health, PAMP, they are also offering updates. So want to make sure people are looking at those and signing up through their providers so that they can get those updates. And then as well, we know some other local spots are opening up. Stanford Health is still prioritizing educators, as well as I think in the last week or so, Rite Aid and CVS are now offering. So make sure you're looking at those as opportunities as well to get signed up. And then we did hear that San Mateo County did receive their first shipment from Janssen Pharmaceuticals, which is the Johnson & Johnson this week. So that's the vaccine where you are receiving one dose. So that's great news. And excited that that is available for staff and the county, making great progress in this area. I think I'm handing it back to Dr. Black.
Thank you, Ms. Devaney. Next slide. This slide shows some of our new temporary staff and reassigned staff. The district has reassigned many classified staff members to the school campuses in anticipation of phase 3, and we've hired an array of temporary staff. They include health aides and campus safety specialists. Also, many of our athletic coaches have agreed to work on site for the rest of the semester as needed. Next slide. Many staff members have requested to continue to work from home for some or all of the remainder of the year. Most of these requests have to do with medical conditions of the employee or family members. Some have to do with childcare and other concerns. We have initiated the interactive process for each of the requesting staff members, and we've been able to extend accommodations to many, and we're working through all of them on an individual basis. Next, we have some information on athletics. So I would like to introduce Jeff Scheller, our San Mateo High School Athletic Director.
Thanks for having me. Before I give you kind of a quick rundown of some bullet points here, I just want to thank Dr. Skelly, Dr. Black, Sarah, all the health aides, athletic trainers. I mean, from early on in the summer, this group, and I'm not exaggerating when I think we were probably one of the best in California, creating policies and giving students an opportunity to play, and it's just carried over now that students are actually able to compete. So thank you for everybody who's been a part of that. It's been great. We have 2 seasons, although things are changing rapidly all the time. Season 1 sports have started, so that's swimming, cross country, girls golf, girls tennis. They went off without a hitch. It's been great seeing them compete and seeing each other. Football is starting. It's already started, but competitions are starting this week, so that's great. Girls volleyball is on hold. That's a traditional season, not traditional, but that's a season 1 sport, but things are rapidly changing. So we're kind of finding a home for girls volleyball. There are some challenges. Some schools are having, sports that are limited in numbers or limited in coaches. And we just kind of chalk that up to this unique experience that we're having. So, just trying to take it week by week. Season 2 sports are going to start at the end of March. The traditional spring sports like baseball, softball, they are going to start competitions as early as March 29th. The remaining sports, basketball, soccer, with some more information, could start later on in the 5th, April 5th. The state is requiring an informed consent form, which we have, the district has provided, and all the students who are competing in the red and orange and yellow sports are required to fill out that form. So we have that in part of our clearance items. Our district and our league and the state are allowing for multiple sports, students to participate in multiple sports if it's in the same season or if that means that it's a club. So giving the kids and families an opportunity to make that choice, not us making those choices for them. So that's been really good. And just, we're this term flexibility. I mean, just today, things that change hourly, and we're all the ADs. I just talked to an AD today, and one great experience we're taking out of this is we've built a great relationship between all the athletic directors and how we've can communicate and we're on the same page. So that's been a positive during this. So it's been great for us. And I'm going to pass it on to Steve.
Hi, everybody. Next slide, please. I'm Steve Selm, the athletic director at Aragon High School. I'm only going to say this because I was told to say it, and I'm also currently the president of the Central Coast section. We have recently just updated our spectator policy that will allow for upwards of 4 members of a household, the same household, to attend a contest per household or per athlete. And a lot of our venues are kind of shared property with sidewalks, and observers can just on the street can watch it. It'll be interesting to see, and we're excited to see what happens at football games this weekend. Everyone has very good protocols in place to manage this, but I think families are very excited, and I'm very optimistic that they are so excited that they're going to comply with everything we ask them to do, just like the kids have. Jeff talked about the flexibility. State and county guidance changes regularly, and it requires constant interpretation, communication, and implementation. The state guidelines have changed, I think, 4 different times since they came out in December, and each time brings a new surprise and brings, you really have to dig down into it and get interpretations, communicating across the section, sometime with the state office and the CIF office. And it is, we're so happy, as Jeff said, to be part of a district that supported student athletes getting out here, but it is, it eats up all of our time to do this. And so, but we're happy to do the work, but we've it is a struggle to keep up. So, but we are doing our best to give our kids as many opportunities while keeping them safe. Online engagement of student athletes has increased. We all have anecdotal evidence. I've talked to several coaches throughout the section, and I know there's been some comments about online education and distance learning, and maybe there's a future for it. And that's there we can have that debate at another time. But I can tell you that this has been a lifeline for kids who have been absolutely miserable at home and feelings of isolation and depression, for them to get out and have an opportunity to compete and practice. Kids who typically are not engaged, who have not been going to class, are now engaged and in class. And if anyone ever questioned the power of athletics or how athletics supports the mission of the school, this is exhibit 1A through 1Z about how important athletics is to kids and how it increases and how it supports the mission of the school. So it has really improved the academic efforts of our students, and moving down, improvements on students' attitude and excitement. And just to echo what Jeff said about the district and their support, and Dr. Black was on a presentation because his daughter plays at Aragon, that we were at the forefront of this, and I don't think we were at the forefront of it because Dr. Skelly or Dr. Black wanted us to win a bunch of championships. They wanted us out there playing for the benefit of the kids and the well-being of the kids. And the kids are super excited, and their attitude has improved just dramatically. Their happiness has improved because they're out participating, and we're grateful for that.
Thank you, Steve and Jeff. Next slide, please. Visual and performing arts. Our visual and performing arts teachers and our administrators are working on how best to provide instruction in phase 3, with having some students simultaneously in person and in distance learning in performing arts and visual performing arts classes. In terms of performing arts, the county did provide some guidance allowing choir and some bands to perform outdoors. And the guidance also includes for vocal cheerleading activities outdoors. So this was some exciting guidance that we were a little confused about prior. Okay, for the next slide, I want to introduce our Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Facility Use, Linda Carlton.
Good evening, everyone. So facilities preparations, we've worked with Sarah and her team and have up all the nice bright orange isolation tents if needed. I think Burlingame is the only site where we're actually using a classroom if we have a situation, but those are up and you can certainly spot them from afar. We've received and have started installing all the teacher plexiglass screens for the teacher desk. They started arriving this past week. I know Burlingame got some shipped today, and I think San Mateo is fully stocked, but those are going in. We also installed plexiglass for our specialized classrooms. And Holly, thank you for going the extra mile and working with us on that, because that was a hurdle to get up over, and our vendor actually kind of saved the day for us and gave us some free ones. And so I think we're good to go there. We're installing the final touches on our campuses as far as directional signs, social distancing markers, et cetera. Like I've said in the past, our facility managers are working with the admin teams. And we all know that this will be fluid. Once kids get on campus, there's a good possibility probably at every campus things will change. But again, our team's working with the admin team. We are thrilled to finally be able to deliver large quantities of PPE to the campuses. As many of you know, we've had PPE in stock and in our warehouse for quite some time. We've dispersed it a little at a time as people were coming back. So we're thrilled to be able to get it out there in a big way and make a little room in our storage units for other items. We've purchased and delivered door stops for the classroom doors. As most of you know, our classroom doors do not have door stops on them for various reasons, typically fire code, but due to COVID, being that they, promote as much outdoor air as possible, we want to have door stops available. So if the teachers want to have their classroom doors propped open, they'll have them. So those were all delivered to the sites. Our facilities teams are double checking on the classroom setups. We worked again with admin teams many months ago, and I know some things are changing, so we're finalizing those. We're ensuring that our restrooms have the proper signage and they're ready for students. We've turned on, as of last week, all HVAC to run 24/7 prior to the March 10th date, which was yesterday. Purchase and place the HEPA filtration units in offices and classrooms as needed. Our facilities team, since we've had some pods back and athletics back, they're getting sort of into the groove, if you will, of monitoring, cleaning, and disinfecting behind those groups. Next screen, please. So ventilation, we completed an audit of the campus restrooms. I believe I spoke to this last time. We have to have our exhausts in the restrooms running 24/7, and they've never been programmed that way. So our staff has been rewiring and reprogramming the EMS systems to allow for the 24/7 operation. Our facility managers will convey to the principals the handful of restrooms that we are not able to achieve that with at this point in time because we are trying to secure the parts. But hopefully once those parts come in, all restrooms will be open. And again, there's probably maybe one or two on each campus that we cannot address at this point in time. We've purchased the additional negative air machines, the HEPA filtration systems that we are deploying to the campuses. We have the mechanical team has been wonderful. They've gone in and they've switched out belt and pulley sizes on various air handlers to allow for stronger airflow into the classrooms. Our operations staff will confirm exhaust fans continue to operate in the restrooms on a daily basis. And our mechanical trades will be doing audits of the systems to confirm proper operations. Suggest opening windows and doors to all rooms when available. We've talked about that before. And we are installing the HEPA negative units as well as our CO2 monitors in all of the Category 3 classrooms. And now I'm not sure who I'm turning it over.
Ms. Devaney.
I know this is something that we're getting a lot of questions on from staff, from students, from the community. So really the county guidance right now related to travel is that as Californians, we are not supposed to be traveling outside of 120 miles. And if you do, the recommendation is to quarantine for 10 days upon your return to your home county. We know that presents an issue with people who may have had trips booked and are hoping to get away for spring break, but really for us to be able to work together collaboratively to open in-person instruction safely, we are hoping that both staff and students and families really follow the travel guidance, which discourages travel. So this is a message that was sent out to staff today, and I believe is being shared with students as we get closer to spring break and reopening. So we really have to work together. Yep, that's it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so that's our presentation, and I want to thank all the presenters, and they are all still with us, I believe, for any questions or comments and feedback the board may have, or Dr. Skelly.
Okay, I'll thank everybody. I actually see there's a public comment. Rachel Lauderdale.
Sure.
Good evening.
Good evening. Do I go before all of you?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I go before all of you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Awesome. Well, hello, President Griffin, Board of Trustees, Dr. Skelly, district leaders, and community members. Although there are many positives I'd like to celebrate, like being back out on the pitch with my soccer team, the few minutes I have aren't enough to include both. For the last few months, I've sat back and listened to district leaders, board members, newspapers, and community members blame the teachers union for prolonging school openings, for teachers being afraid or lazy, for not doing what is best for our students. Our priority has always and will always be our student and community safety. The demands of our MOU have not changed. We require the same safety protocols as the CDC and the California Department of Public Health. We have always kept our most vulnerable students, staff, and community members who are disproportionately affected by COVID-19 at the forefront of negotiations and demands. The district has been aware of our safety demands since we closed schools a year ago, and they waited until the new year to start planning for a safe return to school. Craig described some of the issues that persist with the safety requirements as we approach a hopeful March 24th return for teachers. I'd like to point out more specifically my concerns with technology necessary for a successful return. Since August, the district could have experimented with and ordered technology so we could be prepared for a smooth transition. Instead, as always, they depended on teachers to test the equipment, request changes, and train our teachers about the new technology necessary for concurrent streaming. I offered up my own classroom and organized adults in my learning space so we could test the equipment. Jessica Valera, Sabby Hopkins, and I sat through hours of classes experimenting with the suggested technology purchases. Because of our work, the district will be saving around $150,000 in unnecessary microphone and camera purchases. Without a deep understanding of a Zoom in the room model, teachers had 3 days to watch a screencast and presentation beautifully crafted by Jessica and Sabby to decide which technology was necessary for their classrooms that most haven't entered since March. Teachers were told the default products would be a docking station, which we already have, a 27-inch monitor, and a pair of noise-canceling headphones. Without the monitor, teachers will struggle to manage in-person and at-home students. Without the noise-canceling headphones, we cannot successfully do the Zoom in the room model. After I speak, I will send you the video I created of our testing so you can witness what happens with when both students and teachers do not have the right headphones. The endless loop of audio is unbearable even for the most focused of humans. Unfortunately, because the district waited so long to start the conversations about technology, our monitors will not be here until after spring break. Everyone is praying that the headphones will be here on time. Some were delivered today, some hopefully next week. More likely than not, we will not have the technology here and set up for, and have our teachers trained with the new devices by the time the students are on campus. We are all depending on the tireless effort and endless work of our administrators, teachers, and classified brothers and sisters to make this work. The teams working to get our schools ready on each campus are working miracles in a week's notice when the district could have helped them start preparing in August. If we fail to successfully open on March 31st to phase 3 students, it's not because of our teachers or our union or our administrators. It's because the district leadership waited too long to start preparation.
Can you wrap up, please? Oh,
Wrapped.
sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have board comments. Trustee Land.
So thank you, President Griffin. First, I just want to say, I want to say this as a celebration. I was very impressed. I know this was a little long because we did have some very important details that we had to put in there, but I want to really celebrate all of the phase 1, what's happening. It's kind of a culmination. I can see each meeting getting more and more clear about what's happening and what's happening with our students, and I'm just very proud of it. I do want to acknowledge Craig and Rachel and Carrie about some of the details and concerns that need to happen. I know exactly what this is. This is the devil's in the details and we have to work it out. It's not perfect, but I will say we're headed in the right direction. I know that with COVID, delivery systems are tremendously difficult at this time. So I think we can do this. I think we've got this. I just want to congratulate all the staff who worked really hard to make this happen. And all the people who presented tonight. I'm really impressed. And I really want to say this is a celebration. I know we have still stuff to do. I'm acknowledging that what Rachel and Craig are saying, and Carrie, that there are some details that we have to iron out. And I did notice that Dr. Skelly took a few notes, which is great. I always know that's a good sign. But really, ultimately, this has got to be a celebration of thank you, and just all the work is coming together and we're seeing it and we can celebrate. The athletic directors, thank you so much for sharing what you did. Dr. Skelly, I really feel like you and Dr. Black really put a priority on athletics, and it shows. And congratulations. I think it's really showing it for our kids, and it really is for our kids. So thank you. This is a good celebration, and I want to just keep it in that light. Thank you all.
Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Yes, thank you. In the information we got back in the surveys, so there's breakdown from the schools, but is there a way that I can see like ethnicity and then socioeconomics and things like that? I don't know what the demographical information was that was requested on the surveys, and I can, we can talk about that offline. Then second, I would really like to see some more parent education in other languages, like in the Tongan and Samoan community. I really would like to see some more parent education in Tongan and or Samoan too. I think a lot of our communities are being left behind in what information we're giving out. And then also just making sure that the information we're putting out to the community, and I think I touched on this at the last meeting, is able to be understood by just about anybody. I think even just in the other community stuff that I do, some of the problems have been that people don't understand the medical jargon or some of the explanations because they're explained in such a like more medical or complicated way that people aren't really understanding. And then that might open the door for more questions, and it might open the door for more communication and trust. Because I think some of our communities don't ask questions because they just don't know where to go or who to ask, or they ask the attendance person how to get to a teacher or whatever because they just don't know. And we have to remember that not everybody comes from the same types of communities. That definitely, and I just want to say that I hear you, like for the staff and the teachers that are concerned. There's been a lot of things that I've seen and heard throughout the community too that that supports what you're saying, and I hear you, and we're doing the best that we can. A lot of the information that's coming out of the county and the state, that's what we're following. And with that said, though, it's always changing, and so just continue to reach out and to get some explanations and talk. I think a dialogue is the most important thing. Communication. I'm just big on that. So thank you for everybody's hard work and everybody's input. Appreciate it.
Are there any other comments by the board? Any other questions? I will say that was a very detailed presentation, and I think in continuing from each level, and it's finally, we've probably seen this presentation 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times or more. And yeah, and Greg's got all 10 fingers up that, we've seen it, but each time when we did it in practice, it got a little deeper and a little deeper. And I kind of feel like Greg, although I wasn't ready to party and celebrate and all of that, we actually are seeing, all that effort come, it's actually happening. And, and I think it's like every plan, and we were hearing both sides, both views of the water glass as to whether it's half full or half empty. And I'm just glad there's water in the glass, period. That we are moving. And, the superintendent likens it to the rock pile. And, we're finally moving this heavy pile that we've all worked on for a long time. So, trustees, Lees Dwyer.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I changed my mind. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I think it was a very well done presentation with so much important detail and information for us. And I was trying to write notes, but it was really hard to even do that. And then there were a lot of opportunities to open up and you can go deeper in it, which I really appreciated too. Behind every presenter are so many people who have made this happen, who are working day in and day out to make this happen so that we can give our students and our families a return to the best normal that we can offer them. And so everyone who presented tonight and all of those standing behind them should be applauded for all the work they did. That being said, we all also need to be open to communication from those who have ideas, other ways of looking at things. And I listened to what Rachel said, what Craig said. And I think find the right person, find the person closest to the issue you have, the concern you have, and talk to them, communicate with them, email them, call them. And if that doesn't work, then unfortunately you got to go above them. But I would really everyone should try their best to work together. And it goes back to what Ms. Zuniga said, communication. We all need to communicate. And I can tell you that if anyone emails me, I find the person who can best respond to them, because most of the time it isn't me, because it's important, because ideas are important and working together is important. And I hope that we all continue to approach this with the feeling, the consideration for others, the determination that we're going to do the best we can. And that's how I hope it will be. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? Going once, going twice. I don't see a hand up, so we're going to move on. Thank you for the presentation. L2, social science update and approval of AP World History courses.
Thank you very much. I'll ask Dr. Kemke to introduce our speaker, but first of all, I want to make just a few comments about this item. This is an item that came to the board in the fall with respect to some of the work that we're doing. I have thought for a very long time that there is no department harder to teach in terms of curriculum, what to emphasize, how to emphasize, what to say about various topics than teaching social studies. And knowing our history, knowing our culture, those are super important things for us. We need to know who we are and where we came from. And the social studies teachers that we have in this district are completely dedicated to their craft. I've always found them completely professional when they're confronted with parents who have concerns about what's taught. We know that finding the truth or fake news, all those things, is very difficult. And in a polarized society that we live in now, finding unifying forces as well as acknowledging history is really important. And so this is an important board agenda item. We haven't been talking about curriculum that much, but tonight is a chance to review what we're doing, sharpen our sword on an important area that we work on, and then also hear about the great work of the Social Studies Department here in a public, transparent way. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Kemke.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm very pleased to introduce our Social Studies Coordinator, Mr. Michael Zozo. He's done a tremendous amount of work over the last couple years on a few areas that he's going to present on tonight. So he's been a great asset to this role and has led various groups of our social studies teacher through, kind of tumultuous time here. So we appreciate his work, and we'll also ask for a couple approvals after this presentation that we'll talk to at that point. So I'm going to pass it over to Michael, and you can take it away.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kemke. Good evening, President Griffin, members of the board, Superintendent Skelly, District Cabinet. My name is Michael Zozos, and I am the Social Science Coordinator for the district. I currently teach Modern World History, Introduction to Psychology, and the AVID elective at Burlingame. Although I'm the only one speaking tonight, I would like to acknowledge the work of Social Science Council and my social science colleagues throughout the district. The steps that Social Science Council has taken over the last few years has certainly been a collective effort. I do have a lot of exciting things to share in a very short amount of time. I'm going to do my best to be succinct. Next slide, please. As it relates to council vision, we've wanted to align ourselves with the equity-driven work of the district. Social Science Council has been focusing on making the learning experience for our students both personal and meaningful. And this includes focusing on making sure that our classes are culturally responsive, offer diverse and inclusive curriculum, and that social science instruction is given with an anti-racist approach. Next slide, please. Council, inspired by the district goal of reviewing and examining social science courses and curriculum for bias, with the goal of creating the most inclusive and balanced instruction possible, has really focused on 3 areas: course content, curricular materials, and teacher support. Let me just preface all of this by saying that this is ongoing work and our job never ends. Please continue. Far too often, our district students have felt marginalized in the history we're teaching, and many of those shifts came from a desire of district teachers to be more culturally responsive. These shifts update our social science pedagogy and follow students' curiosity. It starts really with the expansion of the ethnic studies course, which has now been offered district-wide at the 9th grade level. This certainly creates a lens through which students are able to reflect on and challenge the traditional master historical narrative. As it relates to kind of updates to our social science courses of study, we've been looking at and reflecting on what we're teaching at both the modern world history and the US history level, so at both 10th grade and the 11th grade. The California History Social Science Framework and the standards continue to guide these courses, but the content and curricular updates ensure a better representation of all groups of people within the curriculum. And I'll speak to some of those changes specifically in modern world history in just a few minutes or so. Dr. Kemke alluded to it, but we would like to respectfully request that you approve AP World History Modern for Burlingame High School to pilot. By offering this class, advanced placement class students will have an opportunity to have a true world history course and an experience. This course at Burlingame will replace AP European history. And by doing so, this brings an opportunity for better content alignment between the college prep modern world history students and that course with the AP students all at the sophomore level. Additionally, the district and sites are exploring continuing kind of that ethnic studies narrative at the upper division elective option, as well as offering an agency and social justice course. Both Mills and Aragon are looking to expand their elective offerings, and this gives students an opportunity to build on their experiences in ethnic studies and is in direct alignment with the equity mission and vision of the district. Next slide, please. I alluded to and mentioned that the courses of study for both modern world history and US history are in process of being updated. This was done very purposefully and meaningfully. These course revisions is very purposeful work with representatives of all sites. The modern world history team met 4 different times from 2019 through 2020. And then ultimately in January of 2021, Social Science Council approved this new course of study that I'll address in just a moment. And we are currently in process of looking at the United States history curriculum and that course of study looking to update and improve. Next slide, please. Modern world history has been updated to be more culturally relevant, comprehensive, and become a truly inclusive world history course. This class now extends kind of past the traditional emphasis on the Western world. And this revised course of study is certainly more inclusive, both regionally and culturally, places a greater value on the modern world and shifting the timeline of study. There is a certain link and a connection, direct connections with the ethnic studies course and kind of the core values that that class teaches. And it ensures that people of color and other diverse communities are central to the historical narrative and not just kind of a supplement or included kind of in the periphery of the content material. Next slide, please. Although still rooted in the content standards and the framework, obviously the standards are significantly older. The framework is relatively newer. So we're blending the standards and the framework to give it really a much needed update to be more culturally relevant and meaningful for all of our district students. So in terms of the major additions, we're including ethnic studies themes throughout, especially the opportunity to challenge the master narrative that has traditionally been presented in world histories. Due to the addition of ethnic studies within the district, world history, has needed to incorporate contemporary world studies content material. And so you're going to see a much more regional focus within the new modern world history content. In terms of a new emphasis, we're looking at a global, multicultural, and truly representative historical narrative. So you can see it there. We're minimizing kind of that Eurocentric lens that traditionally kind of guides a course such as this. And there's a lot of emphasis on post-colonial regional content. So kind of post-World War II independence movements throughout the globe, Asia, Middle East, Africa, and Latin America that had traditionally been absent in this course. Additionally, shifting the timeline a little bit and making the course much more relevant and meaningful in terms of current materials, minimizing the content of Western political thought prior to 1700. Next slide, please. As it relates to student outcomes, what we are hoping to have students kind of explore is an inquiry-based learning experience that emphasizes historical thinking skills rather than rote memorization. So we're contextualizing modern global issues and events, having students analyze power structures, develop these historical thinking skills that allow them to uncover, discover, and investigate. These are all higher order thinking skills. A key addition here in terms of the student outcomes is recognizing and affirming that history is a matter of interpretation. So we're certainly looking at points of view and perspective regionally, from those that have traditionally been marginalized to those that have traditionally been in kind of that power role. And then also we want students to really be responsible recipients of historical content, allowing them the opportunity to challenge maybe an outdated master narrative, and those master narratives that have traditionally reinforced hegemony and the dominance of Western civilization. So these are the big major shifts and goals that you're going to see in the curriculum. Next slide, please. So additionally, in this process, once we've updated the course of study, it was important for us to find textbooks and materials that matched this new vision for the district. And so we wanted to make sure that we reflected the new course of study. The district and Social Science Council specifically has created a new equity-driven textbook adoption rubric that's going to allow us to assess, evaluate, and ultimately adopt new curricular materials for both modern world history and US history. And what's important to note is that many of these metrics are geared at ensuring that these new materials are diverse and inclusive, not only of points of view, but also in their presentations of people that have far too often been marginalized in society, specifically in those more traditional teachings of history. Next slide, please. So as it relates, we've created a very purposeful, textbook adoption timeline. Modern world history is currently in the process of identifying pilot texts. So we've received content materials from Cengage, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, McGraw-Hill, Savas, and Teachers Curriculum Institute, also known as TCI. So we have a committee that is reflecting on and using this new rubric. We're evaluating, we're processing, thinking about what matters most to our students and what's going to matter most to our teachers in the classroom. Ultimately, with new textbook new textbook implementation and adoption for both US history and world history in the fall of 2022. Next slide, please. Over the past few years, Social Science Council's worked to empower teachers with trainings and support opportunities. Ongoing ethnic studies trainings have been really important, and they centered on pedagogy for both current teachers of the class and also those not teaching the course, giving them a full, well-rounded view and understanding of what ethnic studies is and how it relates directly to all of the other social science courses that we offer. And this provides teachers the same lens through which students will experience our district social science courses. And I have to applaud Dr. Shulman and her work in bringing the Acosta Educational Partnership to our district and making sure that the ethnic studies trainings are of the utmost and highest quality. Also, over the last few years, we've had more social science PD offerings that have been specifically chosen to highlight practices and ensure student success. We had the opportunity to bring the San Mateo Pride Center out last year, recognizing that we are in a very polarized world. It was important to arm teachers with the skills to go ahead and have those really challenging and difficult conversations with students, and to allow the opportunity and space for diverse points of view in the classroom. certainly recognizing that all of our students come from multicultural backgrounds and have their different experiences. And so it's really important to highlight and acknowledge learner variability and make sure that we can support students academically. And then just also making sure that we understand how ethnic studies is that jumping off point for all of our students when they come into the district. And so it's really important to understand and recognize how ethnic studies and that storyline and that historical narrative is woven throughout all of our district course offerings. Something really exciting that we've been able to kind of spearhead and offer this year is our social science book club. And this semester, Social Science Council sponsored a group read of the text Caste and the Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson, which is also part of Oprah's book club. So this semester, 19 social science teachers are participating in this read and diving into this book that certainly assesses hegemonic power in the United States and challenges the master historical narrative. And so later this month, right before spring break, we're going to have a really robust conversation over Zoom. Unfortunately, it can't be in person, but we're very much excited to be able to offer professional development for teachers that is purposeful and meaningful. Next slide, please. So as we move forward, as I mentioned before, this work is never done. This work is continuing to evolve, but we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students and making sure that students feel comfortable in our classrooms, students feel safe in our classrooms, and students see themselves and recognize their stories within the curriculum. And so what we will continue to do is, in a very similar process, is look at and update our other social science course offerings, including economics, American government, and all of our electives, with the intention then of adopting new textbooks that reflect the new course of study and mirror kind of the equity-driven work of the district. We'd love to continue to provide content-based professional development centered around inclusive, balanced, and unbiased instruction. And that is really key here, is making sure that our teachers understand the pedagogy and feel confident in delivering content information that really is different and is a significant shift from what has been presented in the past. And that we'd also like to make sure that we focus on culturally relevant teaching. We're going to continue to evaluate our course content, classroom instruction, and make sure that we offer an equitable learning experience for all of our students. Some future opportunities that we're thinking about in terms of professional development is ensuring that we're permeating ethnic studies pedagogy and that we're emphasizing equity-based classroom instruction, as well as looking at traditional and non-traditional supplementals in terms of content and curriculum resources. I know I shared a lot of information in a very, very short amount of time, but I really want to thank you for the time that you've given me today to highlight the work that Social Science Council has done. It's certainly been a labor of love. It has been a challenging couple of years, but the district and council has been up to the challenge. It has been needed work, and I'm just happy to share out all of our great successes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any board questions or comments, observations? Ms. Andrade Zuniga.
You know, I have something to say. I just want to say thank you. This is awesome. Just looking back at, I went to school in Redwood City. I went to Sequoia High School. And when I was in high school, I never even knew that Latinos were involved in the Revolutionary War, in the Civil War, and anything related to American history. And that is a problem. I didn't learn that until I got to college, until I had teachers teaching specific types of curriculum that taught me that. So that's terrible. It's proven that whenever there are examples of representations of people are more likely to resonate with that information, especially our students, our young people. I think this will definitely open the door for more people to be in AP studies. I think this will open the door for people to be more engaged. This is very important work. Just don't forget disability history in all of this, because people with disabilities have had a significant influence in our history as well. But even throughout the world, just what different, even our indigenous communities, what they've contributed, and this is just really exciting. I want to go to class. Can I join your guys' classes? Thank you. Great work.
Trustee Land.
I'll be quick. I just share
You've
Lehia's.
never been quick.
I go slow to go fast. Anyway, I just want to say thank you. It was a great presentation. I really think you hit on all the high points and what we need to do. And like Lehia said, the excitement and engagement of and connection and cultural relevance to our students is really important. And I think you really emphasize that along with the critical thinking. I mean, I'm a middle school history teacher of many years, and just hearing this and just all the emphasis that you put on the process rather than the facts, and really talking about the critical thinking is awesome. So well done. Thank you.
Trustee Lees Dwyer. You're muted. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm going to be very short. Now I'm even shorter. I want to take the class too. Maybe Leah and I could sit next to each other and because it sounds so engaging, and I think that history will be engaging, and I think that's so important. And I look forward to the student board members' comment.
Okay, student board member, weigh in.
I also want to just say thank you. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I'm also really excited, even though I probably won't get the chance to take the class. I'm really excited to see this class kind of hopefully come into the classes that we have at Burlingame. I think it's really exciting that there's a chance for students of many different cultures to kind of experience learning about their cultures, especially in an AP setting. I think that'll be really valuable to the students of different cultures and just in general for everyone. So I just want to say thanks. I'm really excited for this.
Okay, Trustee Hanley.
I'd be interested in taking a look at a couple of the textbooks. Do you have some samples of the textbooks you could make available to us?
Absolutely. Certainly we can either, if we have some extras on hand, we can pass those along, or I can touch base with our reps and make sure that we send those out to you.
Yeah, I'd just be interested in, I won't keep them for too long, but I'd be interested in just reading through, looking them over.
Of course, and as part of the packet that I put together for you, there's a link to the evaluation rubric. And so you can participate if you'd like and kind of put your 2 cents in and take a look at what the textbook and how it matches up with the equity vision of the council.
Yeah, the presentation was good, but it's hard to assess exactly what the specifics are from just going through the presentation. And I'd be interested, my background is in political science and international affairs. So I'd be interested in just reading through the textbook and getting an idea of what's kind of changing and making a comparison myself.
I have a comment, and actually it has to do with instructional materials. And you talk about modern world history. I know apparently it starts a very long time ago, but it continues on. What other types of instructional materials beside a static textbook would we actually have to incorporate more current events? And, because things are just changing, they continue to change. New countries continue to appear and disappear. So have we thought about the sources or how we'll deal with that?
It's an excellent question that publishers are dealing with on a consistent basis. Teachers are dealing with that right in the moment, and publishers are planning forward. And the great thing is, right, the textbook is static, but as part of the textbook bundle comes all of the online interactive ancillary materials. And as Mr. Simmons and I are meeting with textbook publishers, they're giving us their pitch and they're walking us through all of the different resources that are available to us. And the fact that everything now is online and digital instead of paper copies of books, those can be updated to reflect current changes, or different points of view and perspective can be included. And so the great thing is that although the textbook might not be changing and kind of has a public publishing date, and you can't really adopt that, everything else afterwards can be changed, can be manipulated to meet our needs within the district. And the great thing is the textbook, a secondary source, is bland and boring. The great thing is about the online materials that are being put together and presented from the publishers is really meant to engage students. There's opportunities for flipped classrooms. There's opportunities to change Lexile scores in terms of reading levels to make sure that all of our students have access to primary sources and alike. And then it also gives you the opportunity to take project-based learning, put it online in the platform, and then walk through a bunch of different modules that you can put together for students. And it can almost be a choose your own adventure based on how a student wants to tackle the curriculum.
Now that is really interesting. I mean, everybody else wanted to enroll in a class. I'm not going to volunteer to enroll in the class, but what you were talking about, the way you can customize it and develop it, sounds really interesting. The last thing I have to say is, as a youth over at San Mateo High School, I took U.S. history, and you can only imagine how biased U.S. history was in 1966. We had, we were just on the edge of everything. And by 1968, I was a freshman in college and I took ethnic studies, and I could not believe the stuff that was peddled. It was like 2 years. I'm like, history didn't change in that 2 year period. It was the same history. My whole view of history changed from what we had taught to juniors, which I think was it was a graduation requirement, what we taught to juniors. And then when you get to college, and all of a sudden the way it was taught and what was taught and how it was interpreted was totally different. And it, to me, it had a really big impression. So I do thank you for your presentation. We need to move on. We're going to be here till midnight. We need a board action on this item.
Yes, we're looking for approval for AP World History and then the course of study for the Modern World History class.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, Andrade Zuniga moved and Land seconded. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land? Okay, that was a head nod. Let the record reflect the head nod.
Sorry, I couldn't get my unmute.
Okay, trustees Lees Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley,
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and the motion passes 5-0. And we are going to move on. I believe the term might be with alacrity. Where's L2?
I just want to say thank you very much for your support.
Okay.
You, Michael, for your presentation. Well done.
Appreciate it. Move on to L3, the second interim fiscal report.
We'll turn this item over to Mr. Hawkins for his debut board item. No pressure.
Okay, Mr. Hawkins, how many slides in your presentation? 24.
About.
Okay, I'm like a CBO looking to cut budget or find or to recover time. If you can do anything, I realize this is your first presentation and there's a whole bunch of meat. And if you feel the need to go through the 24 slides, I welcome it. And if you can help us and guide us, because not all of us have been around here forever, I'm sure we'll all appreciate it. But I had counted the slides to start with. So anyway, have at it.
All right, I'll do my best to use my time like we try to use our budget efficiently.
There you go.
Thank you, President Griffin, trustees. We can move on to the next slide. All right, so just like a lot of the other departments, we noted, we're so excited to see our kids on campus, going around. We saw saw the bus drivers dropping them off today, and it was just so wonderful. And as a parent, I also echo some of the thoughts of having a house that is a little bit quieter for a few hours as we move forward. On to the next slide. Like Buddy the Elf, I love budget season. So second interim is always the transition as we move into the next year's budget development season. And so we love budget development season. So next slide. We've already started working with our sites and HR around allocations and our departments to determine the proper allocations for 2021, 2022. But this second interim really acts as the starting point for those discussion. And I do agree that the genius really is 99% budget allocation, but that does come from a fiscal guy. So next slide. And lastly, we always are striving to keep our priorities straight in our budget and really be efficient in those. And so, definitely not going to pay $57 in late fees for the book getting on a shoestring budget. So next slide. Overall, in the second interim, we're going to go over our financial reporting timelines. We're going to go over the assumptions from the adopted budget, first interim, and then the changes coming to you in the second interim budget. We're going to briefly discuss our multi-year projections and then go into next steps for budget development into 2021, 2022 fiscal year. Next slide. You're pretty familiar with these timelines, but we adopt our budget by June 30th. First interim is brought to the board by December 15th. Here we are at second interim by March 15th, which we will be using data through January 31st. Estimated actuals come with the budget before June 30th of the current year. And then we close the books and bring you unaudited actuals by mid-September of each year. Next slide. The adopted budget, we had some healthy secured property tax projections based on updates from the county. And we also showed some significant investments into staff development as we went into an uncharted year of COVID and distance learning. So this is kind of an update on what our budget assumptions were at the beginning of the year. Next slide. As we moved into the year, our revenues were changed relatively significantly, about $1 million decrease to our property tax projection. That was $2.5 million on the secured side, offset by some unsecured taxes that came in about $1.5 million above projections. But the big increase was the Federal CARES Act and the state COVID relief funds that were included in the budget. But also on the expenditure side, we had significant expenditures related to COVID and reopening into distance learning as we moved on. Next slide. So as we get to second interim, and so as I noted before, second interim is using data that we received through January 31st of the fiscal year. Our revenues since first interim have increased about $3.2 million. The two main driving factors are about $1.5 million in community redevelopment funds. In 2020, 2021, the county changed the way that their methodology for distributing the residual distribution of the old redevelopment agencies that Governor Brown moved to close down, almost 10 years ago now. So we're working with the county to really look at this number, but $1.5 million is the number that we've seen to date in those projection. Next slide. The other big change is the December federal revenues, the COVID revenues that were included in the December COVID relief bill that was passed by Congress late in the year. So that are the two major changes in our revenue. Moving on to expenses, next slide. Our expenditures increased about $2.2 million. There's really three factors moving those expenditures. The first is what the board will be asked to act on tonight, which is a 2% salary increase for all of our units, as well as additional expenditures related to reopening, technology, professional development, additional expenses on our return to campus. Those expenditures are offset by some significant savings in unfilled positions, primarily on the classified side, as we have held many positions while we had not returned to campus. Many of those positions are being filled and will continue to be filled as needed as we return more and more of our students to campus. So next slide. And next slide. Next slide. Sorry, I got a little ahead of my slides there. Overall, since first interim, the net change is just a hair under $1 million, leaving us with a fund balance, general fund balance, just over 24 million, and our basic aid reserve at 12.6%. Next slide. Overall, this slide just shows where we've been throughout the year, from the adopted budget to first interim to second interim, pretty consistent across the biggest changes really being the federal revenue around COVID and the expenditures needed for distance learning and bringing our students back to campus. Next slide. Overall, we've seen a healthy secured property tax growth over the last 8 years, but we are seeing a little bit of a decline in that increase into 2021, down a couple percent from the average. For 2021-22 and 22-23, the 2 years in our multi-year projection, we're projecting 3.5% increase. When we look at the property tax tracker at the county, we're seeing right around 3% right now. So we'll continue to monitor that as we move towards budget adoption in June. Next slide. The state imposed increases to the retirement rates for all of our employees, continued to put some negative pressure on the expense side of our budget. As you can see here, since 2013, 2014, our STRS rates have doubled, almost doubled over that period of time, requiring significant millions of dollars of increased required contributions to those programs. As you can see, we're seeing a little dip, temporary relief that was installed for 2020, 2021 and 2021, 2022. But as you can see there in 2022, 2023, that relief goes away. And I know that Trustee Land noted the Legislative Action Day is coming up. And this will be one area that I know that the California School Boards Association will be pushing the legislature for some additional potential relief in this area. Next slide. The state mandated increase to the PERS rates continue on the same trajectory as the STRS rates. It's just important to note that those impacts are a little bit more significant, but to a smaller portion of our overall salary budget. Next slide. So, over the last 10 years, we've seen a steady increase in our enrollment, up to about 9,300 students in 1920. Our numbers have plateaued from there, and our projections show a plateau and then a slow potential decline. This is based on the enrollment of our partner districts, as well as our our enrollment projection software, which is showing a small decline coming in the out years. Next slide. So in terms of our staffing trends, we saw modest increases that went along with those increases in enrollment that I discussed, except you'll see a fairly big jump in 2020, 2021 on the classified side. And that really relates to the additional staffing that we've brought in around COVID relief and our health aides and the additional support, mostly funded by those COVID relief funds. And those will be sunsetting at various times moving forward over the next couple of years. Next slide. Overall, the cost of the 1% after the 2% that is proposed during tonight's meeting is just a little under $1.2 million. So as we move forward, it's good to keep that into consideration. Next slide. In terms of our multi-year projections, so as you know, we have to certify that we can meet our financial obligations for the current and 2 future years. And so we include the 2021, 2022, and 2022, 2023 fiscal years. A couple of the main projections and assumptions that we're using are that 3.5% that I noted in our secured property tax growth, as well as step and column and STRS and PERS rate increases. In 21, 22, that's primarily PERS. And then in 22, 23, we see the impact of the sunsetting of the relief that we've received in those state mandated rate increases. Next slide. And next slide. The other thing on 2021, 2022, we'll also see the impact of the significant amount of federal and state COVID relief revenue that the district has received in this year. Overall, in our multi-year projections, we see the 2020, 2021 year with the basic aid reserve at about 12.6%. And then based on the assumptions, that ticks down a little bit in 21, 22 and 22, 23. Next slide. So with the next steps, we're already holding meetings with our sites, our departments, and HR as they finalize staffing for the 2021, 2022 year. We're working with special education around student matriculation and the services that will be needed to provide to the new 9th grade students. And we look forward to daily looks at the tracker from the county around our secured property taxes. And then we'll bring more information back after the states may revise, which I'm sure are going to have lots of new and exciting information from our governor. And then we'll obviously monitor changes with the pandemic and any related fiscal impact, including the $1.9 trillion relief bill that was just passed by Congress and signed by President Biden. Next slide. In terms of the calendar for the board, tonight we're asking for approval of the second interim. In May, we're planning a study session. That study session is preliminarily scheduled for May 13th, but we'll be finalizing that. And then on June 10th, we'll bring the preliminary budget for review. And then on the 24th, we'll bring that budget back for a proposed budget adoption. Next slide. I really need to have an immense amount of gratitude to Valerie Miller, Vanessa Castano, and Rose Chai. They do all the work here. I just get up and talk about it. So thank you to them. And I just want to say, from the people down below, that with Valerie, Vanessa, and Rose and myself, the three of us will make sure that the numbers will come in perfectly as we move forward. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to questions.
it looked like he stuck on slide 23 about the last 3 slides, but it was a good presentation. You got right at it. Where are all the hands? I don't see a blue hand, Trustee Land, but go ahead. Okay. Okay, let's go.
Okay, there's the blue. I only have one question. Actually, really, very thorough. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you put in all the information about the COVID funds that we got federally and locally. So thank you, or federally and state. On 13, secured property tax growth, you have 3.5 and 3.5 projected. Is that based on the March versus June projections and that things might adjust? Because I'm commonly think that based in my history that things change towards June. And so that 3.5 and 3.5 may look like more like 6. I'm just curious if that's the case.
No, there's always the potential that that's going to rise. I look at the property tracker closely each day. I think there is some interest in that we've heard more south of here. But as commercial properties see vacancy levels, that potentially there might be some commercial properties coming in for reassessment. And so we do have some, conservative numbers in there for that potential. We also look not on the secured side, but on the unsecured side, given the value of the airplanes within the district, that we want to be conservative around that. So our projections are conservative on that level. When we come back in June, we're going to use an updated number. My hope is that number is much closer to yours, Trustee Land. But I want to make sure that, we're not making decisions with money that we don't have yet.
I'm actually grateful you said that. I just wanted to put it out there. Just testing you. That's all.
Okay, Trustees Lee, Dwyer.
Okay. I really appreciate all of the work. I thought it was a really good presentation. I like cartoons. I like the comics. And I know how lucky you are to land here, number one, but number two, to have people, very capable staff, particularly Valerie, Vanessa, and I'm not familiar with the other person, but I'm sure she's very capable too. And that's so important because no one can do everything themselves. I feel optimistic about the property values the property sales and revenues going up for us because the houses in my little neighborhood are just selling like crazy. So we're seeing so much increase. We're going to see some big, I watched the sales, and $1 million house so many years ago is now 2.5. So we are going to see it ticking up. And I'm using your word. I want to see those real estate values ticketing up so that we can be sustained. And I don't want to see our reserve ticking down. So hopefully once we are renormalized, we will be able to look at how we can keep that basic aid reserve at 12 or more. It'll be so close, but I'd like to kind of stay at 12. So that's it.
Yeah, I agree. Valerie and Vanessa do such a wonderful job. And so thank you to them. And I agree on the residential front. I feel like that's very strong, but we'll continue to watch the commercial property and hopefully it ticks up as you note. I think it'll probably will, but we'll wait and see.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes, I think we could see some changes in the way commercial property trends. I'm not sure people are going to come back to work in offices in any way that we've seen before. We'll see how that goes, but I think there are going to be a lot more people working from home a lot more often, and I think we're permanently changed from where we were in January 2020. But we'll see how that goes. The other plug I wanted to put in is I think it's good, obviously good that we're going to get a lot of money coming in, and we've already had a lot of money coming in to support the additional expenses that we're incurring because of the pandemic. But I want to make sure that we're treating these things as kind of one-time expenses, because we tend to leak on things, and people that show up in the district, you know, supposedly as temporaries, they don't stay as temporaries, and I think that's going to be hard to support. I mean, that's a significant increase already in personnel, and I want to make sure that we're treating one-time expenses as one-time expenses, and we're not boxing ourselves into a corner. So that is my plug. And I also like I think the board still has an established goal of 12% reserve. So I do like to see that 12% reserve maintained. Thanks.
Trustee Andrade Zuniga, your hand has been up.
Yeah, I have the same question as Trustee Hanley. Is what happens like if we do an influx of staff or whatever? What happens when we to sustain that? And then also with the money coming in from the state for reopenings and things like that, how much of that is contingent on how many people come back? Did they have like a specific number? Because they were kind of general, like I think we both took that, like we both participated in that workshop, but they didn't say like specific numbers. It's more like if everyone comes back or if not. So there's nothing like really solid that I saw that I could really understand. So I don't know if you have those answers. If not, maybe if we can talk about it later. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll get the board some more detailed information as it becomes available. We're still waiting on some of the details around the new state money, which is, I believe, one of your focuses on, and right behind that, the new federal money around what dollars in that $1.9 trillion bill will come by. But overall, I think we're in a really good position with the work that we've done with our labor partners and getting our students ready to be back on campus in order to capitalize on funds that may be available around reopening. And then the learning acceleration funds, I know we'll be talking about in the coming months as Dr. Skelly will be bringing some more things around that and some of the things we'll be doing for our students to support accelerating some of the loss that may have happened over the last year.
Any more questions, or is that it? So I got a couple of questions, and I guess one of them had to do, and some of them have already been asked, but certainly I'm trying to figure out how much of the 1.9 trillion, and they actually broke it down in terms of government, but how much might make it to California, how much might make it into education? Do we even have that level of detail, or is everything?
We have some real high level numbers. California is roughly 10%, 11% of the U.S. Dollars that flow. So you can just kind of take 1 0 off of the numbers, and that's usually the numbers that approximately come to California. But with federal money, usually it follows the Title I allocations. And although we do get some significant Title I's allocations, our Title I allocation percentage compared to our enrollment percentage is much lower. So if you just looked at it on a per student basis, I expect us to get significantly less dollars than we would get on a per student basis. But yeah, some of those numbers are coming out. They'll be coming out fast and furious, and I'll be getting those to the board as soon as they have some clarity around them.
I had a call today from a reporter from Aragon, and they wanted to interview me on the impact on the district of the state budget money. And I think I may have sent the superintendent something saying, have we seen anything, or did I miss something? Because they want to interview me on something that I said, all I know is what I'm trying to read in the paper, and it's pretty vague. So, is the property tax tracker, is it available in, so we can see commercial and residential separately? Because traditionally we give one number. We get one number and we kind of dwell on it, and we think well, not that we use that as our key performance indicator. And I really think we're kind of at a point of where the two trends are going to diverge, sort of diverge. And I think maybe going forward, we might want to focus on, what commercial's doing and what percent, if we had a general idea of what the percent of our property taxes are commercial and where that's going versus what is residential and where that's going, that probably gives us a better idea of what we're facing or what we're looking at.
Yeah, so I've already, I'm setting up a meeting with the county and I have exactly that question. I do want the breakdown and I want to see what availability they have to give us numbers by category. And even if they can't give it to us in the moment, they should be able to get them to us in aggregate when they finalize the rules in August. So I will be asking for that information because I agree with you that we need to be starting to look at those two numbers potentially a little bit differently and potentially putting a different projection on each of those, or at least a blended projection being clear on, what we're looking at for each of those categories.
The other thing, and we have a new coach and a new approach here, the contra account. What are we carrying in the contra account, or how are we handling reassessments and keeping, because I guess we share equally, we share on a pro rata basis, and we used to keep $1.5 million in the contra account, I think. Yeah, what are we doing these days? We still keeping that in there? Or?
So we've updated that to the actuals based on the P1 certification. So we feel pretty comfortable with that number right now. But we are going to be looking at that as we adopt the 2021, 2022 budget. And that'll be another one of those items that I'm talking to the county about, because you are correct. It doesn't matter where in the county that reassessment number, that first year hits everyone on a proportionate basis. So, we do need to be conservative and in leaving some amount in there. We were hit a little bit by it at the P1. That's why at first interim, our secured number went down from that healthier 7% number to around a 6% number in at first interim.
Okay, and then here's a question, and it probably has to do more with the state, the chart of accounts and the account string. Is it possible that are we tracking what we think are the COVID? Is there a string in there in this account string? Do we have a COVID indicator? Is there a field? And I'm looking for the people who are down below, as you say, and they're kind of chuckling. I would love to see the encroachment and the expenditure sources, or object codes or whatever we call them, to see what the impact on COVID. And I think that could be broken out so that we could see, and we probably won't be made whole, but we certainly will be able to identify salary expense, which related to, say, healthcare, the additional healthcare workers, the PPE, I think, and what those costs were, the additional clean contractors for cleaning and that kind of stuff. I think we need to track that so that we don't lose, and we're talking here earlier, that we don't lose track of what the baseline budget should really look like. Because when we come out of here, we're going to have it's going to look like our budget should be much larger than it is. And in actuality, it should be a lot smaller. It should be back to, that's one of the things we got to figure out. What is it to right size the budget? Trustee Land, you got a comment?
No, I just want to make a motion to accept the second interim report.
Stop me. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's fine. It's
budget
just a motion.
curriculum.
Second. Second.
Okay, trustee Land's got the motion. Trustees Lee Dwyer's got the second. Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Yes.
Okay, trustee Land,
Yes.
trustees Lee Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. We adopt the second interim. Thank you.
Good
I
job.
normally don't get carried away, and I had actually called Yancey, and he was out learning about the district, because I used to be able to have these conversations, and I promise we'll have these conversations offline or before meetings from here on. So thank you.
Well,
Sounds
now
good.
we know how to make you smile with some numbers.
That's his thing.
Good jokes in a brief meeting will make me smile even more. So we're going to move on to M1, construction, approving the leaseback contract document.
We're here to answer any questions you might have.
Does the board have any questions? Okay, and trustees Lee Dwyer.
I just, in years past, the lease thing was a big no-no. And I know that it changed because we've done it. Can you just talk a little bit about that and why lease has become a viable option for districts?
Yeah, leasebacks have been on the books for a long, long time. A lot of districts have used them. Unfortunately, several districts were, it gives you more flexibility in using a best value approach as opposed to just using price as the only decider of having a contract. About a little less than 10 years ago, there was a case in Fresno where leasebacks were really, one of the districts there had given about 30 straight contracts to a single contractor. And so, but the good thing about that is they codified a lot of the regulations and requirements around what best value means, and that price still has to be the number one consideration while considering best value. And so it just codified what all the best practices that the districts that were using it correctly were. And it threw out all of the, probably inappropriate, I might say, factors that maybe some districts were using to ensure they got the single contractor that they wanted. So the legislature passed, and I apologize, I don't remember the exact bill number, but they passed the bill that really codified all those requirements and safeguards to truly show that a best value approach was being used and that it's defensible to your community and to the bidders in the project.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked that question, Linda, because I remember exactly the same thing. And I was like, when was that? 10 years ago? Oh, man.
I remember that that was something we were like, never do that.
Never do that. Yeah, stop that. Can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Does the board have any more questions?
I don't.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the leaseback documents.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, trustee Land made a motion, trustee Hanley made the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Lee Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes, and the motion will pass 5-0. And we will move on to the Division of Human Resources, approval of personnel actions.
Yes, we have approval of human resource personnel actions and addendum with 2 recognitions. We have Christine Powers Rosiah retiring after 10 years and 7 months as a human resource generalist on June 4th. And Kevin Mbimbo, a piano accompanist at Aragon High School, is retiring after 20 years and 2 months on May 31st.
Board have any questions or comments?
I move approval.
Second.
Okay. So we got a motion by trustees Lee Dwyer and a second by trustee Land. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustees Land.
Yes.
Trustees Lee Dwyer.
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
And trustee Griffin, I will vote yes, and the motion will pass 5-0. And we will move on to, so that I can flip my page over here,
Resolution.
into resolution of non-reemployment of probationary certificated employees.
Yes, the next two items are resolutions. One's for probationary employees and one's for temporary employees. We have two employees on the probationary resolution that are identified by employee number.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, we got trustee Hanley with the motion, trustees Lees, Dwyer with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Trustee Land,
Yes.
trustees Lees, Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, and so that motion passes, and we'll move to N3.
We have 38 individuals who are on temporary contracts, and per the Ed Code, we need to pass a resolution to identify that they are on a one-year contract without continuing contracts for the next school year.
I make a
Okay.
motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion by trustee Land,
A second.
and trustee Hanley makes the second. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, trustee Land,
Yes.
trustees Lees, Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes, and that motion passes 5-0. And we'll move on to a public hearing. Do you have an intro on this, Dr. Black?
Oh, sure. So that's the public hearing for a 2% increase to the salary schedules of our classified and classified management and certificated and administrative managerial salary schedules and the confidential salary schedule.
Okay, well, we will open the public hearing, and are there any speaker cards that are asked to speak on this item?
No.
Okay, then we will close the public hearing. And I don't have I do have a gavel, but I won't bang it for the sake. Yeah, here you go. And we will move on to N5, approve the salary schedule and the AB 1200 disclosures.
I move approval.
Second.
Holy smoke. Are there any questions, any words you want to try to sprinkle in here, Dr. Black, before we act on this?
Sure, these are negotiated salary increases with our unions. Some of the unions, like our classified, are Me Too, or they receive the same increase as the Teachers Association. It includes increases to our coaching and co-curricular schedules as well. It's been approved by the county, and I'd like to thank our business office for getting all these salary schedules together while they were doing the second interim.
Okay, so I think there was a motion by trustee Land and maybe a second by Lees Dwyer. Is that correct? Or am I guessing?
I made the motion.
No.
Okay. Okay, I'll flip it around. Trustees Lees Dwyer made the motion, and trustee Land made the second. It happened so fast, and I'm writing, so I apologize. Okay, so trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Lees Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes, and N5 will pass 5-0. Then we're off to the Division of Business Service.
There's one other item, the miscellaneous salary schedule N6.
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 Okay, N5. Okay, I'll take your N6 was not, okay, it was hard to figure out on my sheet of paper. I apologize.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, it's the miscellaneous salary schedule, those pay rates that aren't in the contracts, and they've been increased by 2% as well, except for summer school. That has been increased by a dollar value of $9 an hour from $66 to $75 an hour in anticipation of a high need this summer for various approaches.
Okay, does the board have any questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, we got the motion by trustee Hanley, a second by trustee Land, trustee Andrade Zuniga,
Yes.
trustee Land,
Yes.
trustees Lees Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes, and N6 will pass 5-0. Now I believe we are at Q1.
Yes.
So this is an item that is related to our sale of Crestmore. We're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions?
I move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, a motion by trustee Andrade Zuniga, second by trustee Hanley. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Wait, no, did you say that I moved?
No, I didn't see any lips move. I heard a voice while it was so quick. Who was that? Lees Dwyer?
Me, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. It was a quick wisp of a voice, and
Don't think so, but
okay, I stand corrected for the 33rd time tonight. Trustees Lees Dwyer made the motion. Trustee Hanley, you made the second. Was that?
Yes.
I kind of beat him. That's okay.
with kind of a weak voice, though. I think Hanley was really sounding weak.
I thought I got a second in there. I don't know.
We better hurry up. This
I know it gets ugly after 9:30.
Yeah, I feel the airplane yawing here.
It gets fun after 9:30 now. Okay.
Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land.
Maybe. I mean, yes.
Trustee Lees Dwyer.
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. And the amendment will be adopted 5-0. Board operations, R1.
So staff would like to pull BP 6146.1 about high school graduation requirements. Other than that, we'd ask that you put these on consent for the next meeting.
I got a question.
Yes, please.
So tell me about and I'm going to confess that I did not read it. The board member electronic communications, because I think I know what this is about, but I just want to confirm it.
Yeah, I can't remember that one.
This was the thing they talked about at CSBA.
That's what I'm getting at. I want to confirm that.
Yeah, no, when I read the summary and didn't read your board policy, but they had discussed that, and I forget which session of the CSBA.
I remember that. Yes, exactly. So because it's
County Council did a good presentation. I thought it was at one of wasn't it at one of the local the San Mateo County School Boards Association, where I've forgotten what his name is. At County Council did a long PowerPoint on this. It's about the social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Engaging in social media and
not speaking on behalf of
communication,
your personal opinion. And
it's the new legislation where you can communicate on social media as long as you don't get 3 people talking about, board issues.
Like several meetings.
And as it gets complicated on social media if you've got constituents coming and asking you questions about things, and then somebody else from the board chimes in with a comment. Yeah. And then you get another person on the board chiming in with a comment. Then all of a sudden you've got a serial meeting going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it was always cloudy until they passed this legislation recently. I don't know whether it was last session or the session before that said it was all right that you could comment back to your constituent as long as you didn't get 2 other, you didn't get a quorum of your board joining in on the conversation.
Got it. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so the only one that won't be moved to consent is 6146.1, correct, Superintendent?
That's correct.
Okay,
One of the things under board operations, if this is the right time, is this board study session. And I think Mr. Hawkins mentioned May 13th as the Thursday to do this study session. How does that work with board members' calendar?
I don't know.
I don't know either. May's gonna be a fun month. So, but yeah, let's just do it Thursday. The May 13th.
Just
We'll plan on it, and I'll remind you in my weekly. And if it's a problem, let us know.
Well, what time would that be? Because we also have a board meeting that night, right?
No.
No, we don't.
Oh, okay, then
That would be the board meeting.
that works for me.
And it'd probably be an earlier meeting. We start at 5:30 and much less formal.
I have a
so
question.
when is the governor going, oh, go ahead, Trustee.
I have a question.
Zuzar.
We had one, my recollection is, and it's 9:44 PM, that we had a couple of the principals report, but not all of the principals have reported yet. Is that correct? I think that's correct.
Yeah, that's right. We've only had
Okay, so,
three.
yeah, because we should have the others. And I thought maybe we'd have that tonight, but we didn't. So is that the next meeting?
Yes, we can do that next meeting if that's.
Yeah,
what
I mean, I think that's really important that we hear from them and,
Yep.
their first person view.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other business?
I'm like a walking diary. Set it on diary.
I think
Okay,
that's
well-
it. Thank you very much.